Welcome to Uncommon. I have a wonderful guest, Mark McNease, and he's here to talk about his website and also Outer Voices, Inner Lives. Can you tell us a little bit about your website, how it got born, and why you continue to put your energy into editing it?
Absolutely. It's going on. It'll be 5 years old in April. It's LGBTSR. It's for LGBT senior. By the way, just a little brand note, it's lowercase except for the S. I'm constantly being corrected by people who apparently don't think that I know how to spell. It's LGBT at lowercase LGBT capital SR.org. .com will get you there too. It's a redirect. It has to do with when I changed domain, when I changed servers. But I started it 5 years ago when I was only 52 because I've been sort of an aging advocate for a long time, or an advocate of the aged. I guess that goes both ways. And there wasn't a lot out there for us. And at the time, there's SAGE, of course, been around forever. It's a huge organization. And some others, but they were all service-oriented, great places to find, service organizations or assistance of one kind or another. And I wanted a website that reflected our lives as artists and bus drivers and regular people. And so that's what I set about doing. It's really about columns and interviews, and I feature books there, and I have some regular columnist book reviews and all that sort of stuff. That's what I wanted, and I think that's what makes it unique. And a lot of my readers and folks have said, this is important. We really like it that you do this. And one of my columnists, I believe Lee Lynch.
Yes.
And her Amazon column. She's such a great person. But they're on there every month, and so I'm trying to just get at the gist of it. That's what I wanted to do. I did not want to start up another site with a bunch of, here's where you can find the LGBT Center in Topeka, and here's where you can find that. It was really about creating a space for us to express our lives as older LGBT people. And it started out really small, and I just kept doing it and reaching out to people. And I have a wonderful columnist named Stephanie Mott. She's a transgender woman in Topeka. And she's been writing for me almost from the beginning, and she's fabulous. And I've got Lee Lynch, and I've got a gentleman who writes columns about retirement, living in retirement. So that's what you'll find there, and it's been just a great experience. One of the things that I like most about it are all the fabulous people I've met. I've also interviewed a lot of people, and it's just created a sense of community for me and given me a lot of new people in my life over the last few years. And it's going to be 5 in April, and I'm really, really proud of it. Two of the best things I got out of it, and then I'll let you, ask something else, is I moderated a panel at the National Lesbian and Gay Journalists Association in Boston 3 years ago. I had Stephanie Mott was there, and a man named David Webb, who's retired now, used to write for the Dallas Voice. And I was the moderator. That was fabulous. And then last February, a year ago, I was invited to the LGBT Elder Housing Summit at the White House. And that was just, I don't know how I got invited, but it was really nice. I mean, it was really great to go. And I'm still in that space. I love putting something out there I have email subscribers, and they get an email every Friday with all the new content. So that's kind of it.
My parents are in their mid to late 60s, and my father's very uncomfortable with technology. Like, I have to help him, ease him into it. So I was wondering, what are ways that you've been able to help those not quite familiar with working with computers and online to get the information accessible to them, to help them take advantage of the website and see themselves finally represented and no longer invisible?
Well, it's mostly been word of mouth. I mean, I'm here all by myself in New York City with my husband. It's all been remote. I mean, it's all been virtual. I've only personally met a few people through the website because I'm in New York City and most of them aren't. But it's just been word of mouth, and it also has a Facebook page with 4,100 likes, 4,100 people out there. Of course, I don't know how much you do on Facebook, but that's kind of an illusion because of the way Facebook operates. But there's just a lot of people who know about the site, and I've also partnered with people like oh my gosh, in Philly, who are they? LGBT Elder Initiative. I've been friends with them for a few years and used to share content. So people tell other people about the site is mostly how it works. And then, of course, through SEO, through just people finding the website when they're searching for something and ending up on the website. Technically, I think that I'm very technically savvy. I've been doing this for a long time. And I don't know. It's even explaining to somebody how WordPress works is a challenge. But I do it effortlessly because I've been doing it such a long time. But their awareness of the website really comes from having been around for 5 years. It started really small, and a couple people knew about it, and then, like I said, they would tell other people. They would cross post things. That's a big thing. Yesterday I posted a travel piece of some folks out in California that contribute now, and then went to on a cruise, and Kathy Griffin was the comedian. So they do their own things, and they'll send it to me and say, "Would you be interested in cross posting this?" So there's been a lot of cross fertilization.
So can you mention a few articles that have really made an impact on you, knocked your socks off, or made you think differently, something that you were proud to give a home to?
Well, there was not long ago I do this. It's called 6 Questions for. I did one with you.
Yes, you did.
Yes, and it's not boilerplate. There's so many book bloggers out there who have like these 6 questions that they ask everybody, because I understand they're really busy, but I tailor my questions to the interviewee. I read about them and I offer them something that will get them to respond, hopefully in depth. But there was a gentleman, he's a retired professor, and he's a historian of gay fiction, male gay fiction. And that was really fascinating. And some of these things get a lot of hits, get a lot of exposure. That was great. Interviews have been amazing. Julie Bendel, I don't know if you have any idea who she is, but she's over in London. She's very controversial. She's an author and a feminist, and she gave me an interview. I've discovered that most people are very willing and happy to give you interviews. So a lot of the interviews I'm very proud of. I love having Lee Lynch on there. I just really do. She's such a generous person, because I can't pay people. That's the thing. The site does not generate revenue, and being a website person yourself, you may be aware of this, but there's just no money does not come in, so I cannot pay my contributors for the most part. The first year I paid everybody because I'm a writer, and 30 years ago when I was writing for a gay paper in LA, the editor said to me, "Get $10 for what you do. It's not much, but your writing has worth." So I remembered that, and when I started this website, I thought, I'm not asking people to contribute for free because it's not fair. Ariana Huffington does it, and she's got hundreds of millions of dollars. I wasn't going to do that, but I burned through thousands of dollars very quickly, and I told the folks, I can't pay you, and if you don't want to write, I totally understand. And they all said, we love the site and what you're doing, don't worry about it.
So one of the things that I think that the internet is able to do is to reach, obviously, people internationally. What experiences have you had with people reading internationally in countries where there are laws that are not only homophobic but also very dangerous to LGBTQ people?
I'm not quite sure. When I don't use Google Analytics. I just have Jetpack, so I see the traffic every day, but I don't know where it's coming from. I used to, because I used a different service, but I don't know. I don't really know where it's being seen. I do know that I have interviewed and done articles from people in other countries. There was an interview with a South African activist it's been about 2 years now. I can't remember her name, but that was really...
The reason why I bring it up is the other day I was reading a blog by Andy Marquette. She does some really wonderful literary blogs. And she said that, she told us, before you read the article, there's a happily ever after. But she was talking about how disheartening it can be to be an author and how much energy needs to go into promotion and how it can really wear you down. And then she got an email from a woman in Russia who was talking about how her writing was very intellectually, emotionally nourishing, and that there are other people who really get something out of, reading her novels, because life is so hard, and it's even, it's literally dangerous to have certain things on your person. In some places, it's almost open season on our people. So that's the reason why I asked that particular question.
Well, I'm not. I want to just add. I want to jump in there for a second because I don't know. I don't have that experience. But what I have had, and what has kept me going several times, is getting an email from somebody who lives in some little town in Mississippi or Alabama, and says, "I really appreciate what you're doing because we have nothing here. There's nothing for us here," and that really touched me. And said, then I go like, okay, what I'm doing has value, because I live in an urban center, and it's so easy for queer people to go, well, think that it's all about Chicago and Los Angeles and New York, and it's not. We're everywhere, and we're in little towns where there is no LGBT center. And hearing from those people has mattered to me as much as anything has.
So you have, did you produce Outer Voices, Inner Lives?
What I did was I co-edited it and published it. It was part of this whole older thing, even including, I'm just going to throw in my mysteries in there because they center on an older male couple. I wanted to write a mystery series that featured characters that were my age and like me, and my covers are not like hot, 20-year-old torsos. I don't do that, but oh yes, Outer Voices in Our Lives. There's a friend of mine who has a website out in Los Angeles called Rainbow Gray. It's not really active now, but he was for a while, and we hooked up, and I said, listen, he wanted to do a film festival, like for an older people film festival, which I thought was a huge undertaking. And I said, what about an anthology? Because there are some such wonderful writers, older writers out there that people should know about or be exposed to. So we did a call for submissions on Lambda Literary and various other places. And we ended up getting lots of submissions, and we called it into 16 stories. It's called Outer Voices in Our Lives, a collection of LGBTQ writers over 50. We had to be specific because that was its mission. And the foreword was by Patricia Nell Warren, who was really kind enough to write that for me. And it was a Lambda Literary Award finalist last year, which floored me. I wasn't even going to enter it. Stephen entered it. I didn't even really know anything about the Lammies, being a secluded, isolationist. But yeah, that was thrilling. And the writers in there are so wonderful. And Lee's got a story in there, and Gene Ryan, and a bunch of others. And I was really, really proud of that. Very proud of that.
About 3 years ago, I had Lacey Gardner on my show. She's a fantastic reader. She's like, she has a background in theater. And she had been at a reading and asked people what they wish to see in books, something that they don't see. And that was older lesbians, somebody who's not in their 30s or 20s or in, teenage years, and not having them be asexual. So she created this really awesome short story that she read for my show, and it starred 2 octogenarians, and who this one woman said, well, we were extremely sexually active until last year when something happened. And, I'm sure there were some folks that are agog, and Sheila and I wrote Finding Home, and we have a lesbian couple, Demi and Sophia, and they're in their 60s. And it was important for us to show that especially women are relegated to being sexless or genderless, or no longer appealing. They're not allowed to age in the way that men are allowed to age. And I had this really hot kiss between the two women that shocked the socks off of the Viewpoint character. And when we had shared this with a teenager, because it's young adult, we wanted to see what their thoughts were. She was straight and she really got uncomfortable. But I was like, yeah, they kiss. Yeah, they have sex. Life does not only exist up until your mid-40s.
Not at all. And there are some wonderful people out there doing a lot of great work around that. There's a friend of mine, Terry Clark. She's with Action AIDS and various other things. But she goes around and speaks. She speaks to groups about sex as an older person, as a senior. And she talks about lube, and she's very candid because she should be. And it's there's an assumption that once you're even over 40, either you don't have sex or nobody wants to have sex with you. And that is so not true. You have issues this is what I like about being involved in age issues for the aged. They're sexually active people in nursing homes, and they need to, those people who work in those places and administer them need to understand this, and that you might have an old lesbian in a nursing home who is sexually active. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done. They've got STIs are fairly high among older seniors because they're having sex, and maybe they think that at that age you don't need to protect yourself. But there's so much stuff going on about our sex lives as we get older, and it's a lot more visible than it was. Like I said, when I started this LGBT senior 5 years ago, there really wasn't a lot out there, and people might giggle at the thought of a webinar on sex or a presentation on sex, but it's changing very, very slowly because we're all getting older. America is getting older. The gray wave is upon us, and it's starting to get a little bit more traction.
One of the things that I think should also show up in fiction and nonfiction is long-term relationships where ability changes. My partner has had spinal injuries, a lot of nerve damage, a lot of, you'd never know by looking at her, because of how she carries herself and behaves. But when somebody's ability changes, your sex life changes too. And I think that that's also utterly invisible. People always want to see the glamorized or, even the wholesome sexuality. But when it comes to diminished ability, people who have degenerative diseases, that doesn't mean that they don't need touch and love, sex and affection. And I think that that's quite invisible.
And also disabled people. Mm-hmm. I saw some really interesting article not long ago about a sex worker, a male sex worker who helped a man who was disabled. I don't know if he had palsy.
I read that. That was wonderful. This guy, I can't remember what he had, but it affected his body and his mobility, and he almost felt rendered sexless. And at first, when he was deciding to reach out to a sex worker, he felt bad about it. But then it ends up being something really empowering. He found a wonderful person who was very thoughtful and conscientious and was able to give him what he needed. He wanted to kiss, he wanted to be touched. He wanted somebody not to be repulsed by his body. He wanted to be able to experience orgasm even though his body twitched and had some pain that are associated with his ability. And so this was a very renewing experience, and then it changed him into an advocate for people who have disabilities and the need to, open up the world to their lives and show that, no, your life is not over because you have something that's affecting your mobility and whatnot. And I think that's important. When I was reading your website before we started our discussion, it actually touches on one of the most important themes in my life, which is making space for stories that don't normally get told, whether that's on my radio shows. I intentionally do it with the anthologies that I publish. I want these unusual things out there. I want to liberate authors and let them go for it and not censor themselves, and also make space for stories that, aren't untold but need to be told. And so your website makes visible those who feel rendered invisible, and whether it's social media, television, even walking around in stores, and how ads and mannequins or whatnot, how underrepresented or invisible that they have grown to feel as they age.
Yeah, I want to add, touching on that another thing that I was committed to with the website, and always will be, is having people on there who maybe they haven't written anything before, or maybe I wanted people to feel free to submit things to me that that might get turned down. I don't know what I'm trying to explain. It's just, you don't have to be a great writer. I wanted to give them a voice, and I've had poems on there by somebody in California who writes poems, and other pieces on there. I'm not the Gay and Lesbian Review. I'm not, what I mean? I'm not a snob. I'm not looking for, award-winning pieces. I just want people to know that they can share their creative life. And that's been a real rewarding part of that for me, too. I mean, most of the stuff is good. The columnists are all good. But I'm more than happy, unless something is really not publishable, to share that on the website.
Yeah, when I've done a few times for Pride blog series where each day would be a different blog. And when I was looking for, I was putting out a call for people interested in blogging, I had asked one of my friends who she has this Kick in the Pants blog, which is her mother is a hoot, and my friend is in her 50s, I believe, and her mother is just so hilarious, and she's always writing on Facebook, their adventures and posting photographs and whatnot. And I was like, oh my goodness, you should totally do a blog. And she's like, well, I'm not an author. I said, no, you're fantastic, and you don't have to be quote unquote an author or published or whatever. I'm looking for queer voices, and making space for that. And she did a fantastic blog. I loved it. And sometimes you have to actively reach out to people, because often we count ourselves out. Like, that's not for me, or I can't do that, or they wouldn't be interested in me and what I have to say.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So we're coming to the end of our time. What's a message that you would like to leave to my listeners, and also, a message about seniors and why this website is still so very important to you?
Well, I think a lot of it is my own philosophy, my own way of being in the world. I believe in enthusiasm, even though I'm sometimes depressed and irritable. Life is magical, and just being conscious is astonishing, and it doesn't stop until we stop. And we don't have to get off the stage for anybody. I understand that you've got younger generations; they have their own experiences, they have their own things that they want to put into the world, but we do not have to get out of the room. We can share the stage, and there's room for us, and that we have value. And one of the things that I heard so often when I was talking to people, like at sage gatherings, is the feeling of invisibility. So many older people, they feel like we don't see ourselves in the media. The gay media, queer media is it's a microcosm of the broader culture. It's no different. They don't want to see old people. And I want to change that. I wanted to change that. That was the whole point of it. And that's what I want to tell folks, not just who might be in that demographic, but who might say, you know what, I think I want to see what Lee Lynch has to say this month. I want to check this out. I want to check out that out. Because if you live long enough, you're going to get there. Everybody's going to get there if we live long enough. And be vibrant and never think that you're finished until your last breath, or until you reach a point in your existence where it's time to let go. Just stay on the stage and live and love and speak. That's what I want to tell people. You have value every day of your life.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for coming on my documentary series, Uncommon. I've learned a great deal and enjoyed your company.
Thank you very, very much for having me.